Hey, it's your host, Carly here. I appreciate you sticking around while I took a break for a few months. We had a baby back in July, and adjusting to life with 3 little ones has been crazy. You know, just when you think you've got the hang of this thing called motherhood, life throws you a curveball. A sweet, snuggly, adorable, chunky little curveball that doesn't nap and hates the car. So that's where I'm at. And you've got to try to figure it out all over again. But I'm back from the break and looking forward to bringing you some great guests with important stories. Today, I'm talking with a woman who suffered from both prenatal and postpartum mood disorders. And she's going to tell me what that looked like for her and how it inspired her to help others experiencing the same thing. So stick around. Welcome to the Labor Lessons Podcast. Real life lessons from real life labor and delivery experiences, offering support and the knowledge that you are not alone on your birthing journey. The purpose of this podcast is to educate based on others' past experiences. It is not intended as medical advice. I'm your host, Carly, C-section mom, VBAC mom, and mom who's simply passionate about birth. Welcome to this episode of the Labor Lessons Podcast. My guest today is Allison from northeastern Pennsylvania. She is a first-time mom, an intuitive medium, and owner of Souls of a Feather, where she offers readings online. She suffered from severe prenatal anxiety and postpartum depression that landed her a hospital stay and several weeks recovering at her mother's away from her baby. After her postpartum mental health battle, she has made it her mission to use whatever small platform she has to spread love, heal, and inspire others who may be dealing with their own struggles. Allison says that there needs to be more education and resources offered to women during their prenatal and postpartum periods. And also, this topic needs to be discussed more so mothers don't feel alone and are comfortable enough to reach out for help. And I absolutely agree with you on both of those, Allison. Thank you for joining me today to share your story and to help other mothers feel less alone in their experience.
Yeah, absolutely. Thank you for having me. I'm really excited to be here, and something that, after it happened, I knew I really wanted to talk about it and, bring awareness to it. So I'm excited that I got this opportunity. Thank you.
It's amazing. And it's so important too. I feel like a lot of women suffer alone in silence. So it's really important if you're willing to share your story, that you do. So let's start with your pregnancy.
Yeah. So it's been a fun ride. Funny enough, I always laugh at this. I was going through some just physical health issues for a while. So basically what happened was we tried but didn't try to get pregnant for 2 years. I had issues with my OBGYN at the time telling me, "Oh, you're fine, nothing's wrong with you." Come to find out I had PCOS, which Polycystic Ovarian Syndrome. I know some people always ask what that is, which makes getting pregnant harder. So, in my mind, I was like, I really can't get pregnant, or at least it hasn't been working for 2 years. And my physical health, I was gaining weight like crazy with the PCOS. And I said to myself, okay, I think it's time we stop trying and I focus on my physical health. I get myself stronger. Mental health is always great to work on too. I asked for birth control, and it took the doctor, was it 2 months? At least a month to get back to me. Yeah, I'll order it. I'll send it to the pharmacy. No response. Contacted her. A month went by, and I got pregnant in the meantime. So it was kind of like a, oh crap, what do I do scenario? Because now it really wasn't planned. But obviously, universe, was meant to happen. But I will say that was finding out I was pregnant in July of 2021 was probably the indicator that I would have some mental health issues, because I tried for so long. I should be excited. I should be, soaking in the moment and feeling the joy. And it was like pure denial. Wasn't even panic per se, but there was just no acceptance that I was pregnant. And it went from just a state of denial to a state of pure anxiety, medical anxiety. I had hyperemesis gravidarum. I know some people don't know what that is. That's extreme morning sickness. I was hospitalized with that for, I think, about a couple of days, maybe. I don't think it was a full week. But yeah, morning sickness is morning sickness. It's sickness. It's expected. But it was to the point that it was several days, no fluids, no food. Like I couldn't hold anything down. I went in the hospital. My pressure was like 189/100 something. My fingers turned purple. Like it was the craziest experience because I felt like my body was just shutting down. So yeah, so I struggled with that. And I think that kind of triggered more medical anxiety, that there was like something wrong. And honestly, it kind of turned into like a hypochondria throughout the pregnancy because I also struggled with gestational diabetes. Towards the end, it turned into hypoglycemia. And, you know, you're supposed to check your sugars, 3 or 4 times a day? And I checked it constantly. Like I would feel the slightest bit off and I would check it. And I was going through so many supplies. And they're not cheap. I was going through so much supplies checking my sugars because I was so paranoid that something was wrong. And not only that, it would be, you know, if the baby didn't kick as much as usual, yes, you're supposed to be aware of that, but it was more paranoia than anything. I can't tell you how many times I was in the ER, like, something's wrong, figure it out. You know, and thinking back, that probably should have been in you know, an indicator to me that I might have an issue after the baby too. But didn't really think that way. I was like, you know, I'll be fine, whatever. Had the baby, and I mean, I know other people have more traumatic experiences, and I don't want to diminish that, but to me, the labor process was traumatic in a way. I'm a control freak, and I already had like the hypochondriasm in the end, or whatever you want to call it. So I had to be induced, scared the crap out of me. I don't even remember how many days, it's all a blur. It took several days. Medication wasn't working. I wasn't eating anything, obviously, because they don't let you. And with the hypoglycemia, it made me feel so much more junky than it probably should have. And I got to the point that I was just ready to crack. And they're like, go eat, go take a shower, you know, we'll go from there. Thankfully, I ate, took a shower, went to go get back in bed for Pitocin, and my water broke. So I think I delivered at like 1 a.m. Oh my God, it was such a blur. And I remember after I delivered, my epidural was so strong that I didn't feel, it was like probably a full 12 hours or more that I couldn't move. And they had to like put a catheter in me to go to the bathroom. And like, to me, that was just so much more dramatic than I expected it or wanted it to be. So, I mean, yeah, I think I was just numb. I remember they put him on me, and I like didn't cry tears of joy like I thought I would. I literally said, holy shit, I just had a baby. You know, I don't know if I could curse on this podcast.
No, you're fine.
Yeah, I was basically like, holy shit, there's a child on my chest. Oh my God, this just happened. Like, I couldn't even process it, and he was on my chest. Yeah, so it was a lot for me, I think, mentally to take in after the complicated pregnancy in the first place. And then I came home, colicky baby, wouldn't sleep in the crib. I was paranoid to co-sleep because I didn't want to crush him, but sometimes I had to, which then raised my anxiety more. I think less than a week out of the hospital it was, and I was back in the ER with extremely high blood pressure, probably anxiety. I know it was anxiety, but I went in, they did nothing. They took my vitals, they gave me some blood pressure meds. That's it. So it, even on meds, was very, very high. I went back in. I remember the ER doctor looked at me and he's like, I think it's just anxiety. Like, go home. They didn't even like really look at me. So I understand, because I'm sure they have people come in all the time looking for medication or just looking, you know, for some relief and for anxiety or mental health stuff. So I understand like they were standoffish. But to me, I was like, something's physically wrong with me. Like, I was almost passing out. My blood pressure was so high, and they just dismissed it. So I came home, and about 3 weeks later, because I think it was about a full month that I was home or close to it, postpartum depression really was significant. I remember I came downstairs. I tried to sleep. I was not sleeping for several days in a row. And I'm not somebody who could function on no sleep. Some people can. I cannot. Came downstairs, and I just remember freaking out that like nothing's helping. And none of the medications I took to help me sleep were helping. I mean, I had sound machines, I had earplugs, I had all the things. Called my primary care. They said, this is an OB problem, call OB. OB said, no, you got to call primary care. I went back and forth a couple times. You know, try Benadryl, try melatonin. Yeah, no shit. So that didn't work. And I kind of had a meltdown, and I said, nobody's helping me. Like, I understand to them it's just sleep, but I can't function. My heart rate was so high. It was ridiculous. And I got upset. So I said, I'm calling my medical professionals to help me, and nobody's doing a damn thing. And they're brushing it off like it's nothing.
There are severe consequences to no sleep.
Yeah. Yeah. Like, I think I entered like a manic state. And that's when, thank God, my boyfriend's mom's an ER nurse. And I went up to her and I said, I'm not okay. I didn't necessarily have thoughts of self-harm, but I know where firearms are in the house. And for a split second, I just had the urge to touch it, which was enough to scare the crap out of me. So I called my OB and I went to the hospital, and that was such an intense thing. I think if you've never been in that position, it's like, I don't want to say culture shock, but it kind of is. Like, it's just a whole nother world when you're in a situation like that and you're admitted. And, I came out of that, and between med adjustment and trying to mentally get back to the real world, stayed at my mom's for a while. And I remember having several panic attacks at her house. I felt like I just want to crawl out of my skin. I said, I don't know what's wrong with me. I just want to get out of my body. And then it dawned on me, holy crap, now I understand why so many people, do commit suicide or self-harm, because they have those thoughts that they just want to run and they can't get out of their own mind. So, thankfully I have a great support system, and they were able to talk me down and help me cope with it. But it was rough, yeah. And I know a lot of moms struggle with connecting with their babies too when they go through this, and I did too. I never wanted to hurt him. I never had those thoughts. But even coming to visit when I was staying at my mom's house, like, I just felt so numb. I said, he doesn't feel like my child. I love him. He's a cute baby, but he didn't feel like mine. Whereas now I'm like so insanely obsessed with this boy, and I can't believe I ever had those thoughts. But there's just so many little things that go through your mind that people don't realize when you struggle with something like this. So yeah, thankfully now we're all good. Everything is really good now. I don't think I have any hints of it, even, between medication and therapy. I'm pretty sure I've come on the other side of it. But yeah, it was a scary thing to go through, and I've never gone through anything like that before. I didn't know what to expect, and made me realize there's so many people, especially new moms, that are in the same boat, and it's just mind-blowing that nobody ever talks about it as much as they should.
Yeah. I find myself a lot saying when I do interviews with people, like, the postpartum care in the United States is abysmal. It's terrible. And, it's hard enough to talk over any physical concerns with your OB, let alone like mental or emotional. And I've recently been hearing, we talk a lot about like the maternal mortality in the United States and how it's, it should, for as medicalized a country as we are, it should be better than it is. And it's not. One of the leading causes of maternal mortality is suicide, which comes from postpartum mood disorders or prenatal mood disorders. So there should be more help for things like that. There should be better screenings. There should be better access, better education. And there isn't. And I had a woman on a little while ago who talked about she had postpartum anxiety, and it was something that she had never heard of. I had postpartum anxiety, and it was something that I had never heard of until like way after the fact that I went through it and was like, this just doesn't feel right. This can't be normal. But, there's no one to talk to about it. There's no help. You tried to talk to many people, and it was like, yeah, whatever. Like, take it up with your PCP. Oh, no, that's an OB issue. It's not our issue.
Yeah.
It's awful. That's awful.
And unfortunately, I have dealt with that so much, getting blown off in the medical community my entire life. I've had health issues since I was in, probably middle school, early high school that I could remember. And hey, I think this is wrong. Oh, you're fine. Oh, you're too young to have this problem. Oh, that's not what it is. Oh, it's, maybe they'll run a short diagnostic test, but nobody ever dives in to look into the problem more. And now I see that's the same thing when it comes to mental health. I will say, as far as like screening, I don't remember my OB screening me. Well, actually, that's a lie. I think they did. Maybe they might have once, but they already knew I had it at that point. But even going to the pediatrics office, when he had his pediatrician appointments, I remember they give me the paperwork, and I had already gone through it at this point. But looking at the questions, I guess I would say, their questions are not very I don't think the questions are very helpful, if that makes sense.
Yeah, no, they're not.
It's like, I mean, one, if you're really struggling and you're embarrassed, you don't want to mark it on your kid's pediatrician thing because, obvious reasons. It's nerve-wracking. But not only that, it's the questions and how they word it. I mean, I think if you marked like 2 things that are like, oh yeah, sometimes I feel down. If you marked like 2 things on it, they flagged you for postpartum depression. And yeah, maybe you do. But for me, I was reading them like, that doesn't mean postpartum depression. That just means you're a new mom and yeah, you're tired. You're tired, you're grouchy, you're moody, you're not sleeping. But, I think that there's a real disconnect between how they're diagnosing and how they're catching it. Because I think it's just the way that they're asking these questions just doesn't correlate with what actually happens, I think, with postpartum depression. Yeah.
What kinds of questions do you think they should be asking or should be phrasing the questions?
I see, that's a hard question. I was thinking about that recently too, and I'm like, I don't necessarily know how to phrase it, but I know what they're doing right now is not working. I mean, honestly, I think questionnaires are garbage. People could lie during questionnaires. It's not, I don't think it's a good diagnostic tool, especially it's like, what, 10 questions, if even. I honestly think there should be like a psych evaluation, like before you leave the hospital, maybe throughout the pregnancy, and then definitely like postpartum. I think there should be checkups, even if it's just like a telehealth virtual thing. I don't think a couple questions are good enough. I think a doctor needs to see somebody interacting and their facial expressions and stuff like that they need to pick apart and diagnose a little bit more rather than paperwork, because it's definitely, I mean, there's things that I noticed that were red flags for me that didn't get covered on paperwork, I guess I would say. Like just my inability to, I don't know how I want to say that. Just to I mean, I have ADHD, but just to focus in general on a conversation. I was so in a hole of depression and anxiety that I couldn't focus. I couldn't comprehend a sentence. I was a mess. And I would just panic. I would have so much hyperactivity, I guess. So maybe my ADHD was like 10 times worse. I didn't feel right. And I listened to your episode where you talk about, your struggle with anxiety too. And I remember you said something about you're just not feeling right. You don't feel yourself. And that's exactly it. And I don't think paperwork finds that. I think the people that you live with see that. The people that love you see that. Maybe you see that. And that's the other thing. Maybe ask the people that you're living with. Have a joint appointment or something where you talk about it. Like, hey, have you seen changes in this person? And maybe that seems extensive to some people, but I don't know. I definitely think what we're doing right now is not working and something needs to change.
Yeah, absolutely. I recently interviewed a woman who lives in Denmark, and their postpartum care looks like a nurse who comes out to their house 3 days postpartum, a week postpartum, 3 weeks postpartum, 6 weeks postpartum, and spends time with them and really gets a grip on their mood, what goes on in the house, how they're functioning. The care difference was just unbelievable. I was floored. Yeah.
Wow. And what's actually crazy now that you say that? There's a program, if I could remember, I think it's maternal fetal medicine or maternal family medicine, something like that around here that kind of helps people navigate first motherhood and stuff like that. And I think they offer, you have to be a lower income assistance kind of thing, but they offered a nurse to come out like that. And the nurse would help check the baby, check their baby's development, over, I think, the first 2 years, maybe something like that. Can't remember details, but the nurse would come out and check the mother's vitals during the pregnancy and after the pregnancy and would discuss mental health stuff. And I'm sitting here thinking you say that and how Denmark makes that just a normal thing they do with postpartum care. If we could do that for families with low income, just because
why can't we do that for everybody?
Exactly. Yeah. Makes no sense to me. Makes me so angry.
Yeah, and especially since during pregnancy, you're at the doctor's every month, then every 2 weeks and every week. Why does that care not continue into postpartum?
Exactly. And not only that, why aren't when we go to these appointments during the pregnancy, why don't we have conversations more about mental health? I didn't know that postpartum OCD was a thing. When I was in the hospital, They diagnosed me with a major depressive episode from situational depression because of postpartum depression. And it was marked there that, like, possibility of prenatal or postpartum OCD. Like, what the heck? I didn't even know that was a thing. Like, I mean, they vaguely...
And then did anybody ever, like, tell you, hey, we think you have postpartum OCD. This is what it looks like.
No.
Like, does this... Yeah.
No. I mean, like, in the hospital, they do give you a little bit of a rundown. I don't think they dive into it too much other than, hey, this exists. We think you have it. But it just floored me that, you know, I talked to one of the receptionists when I was leaving my OBGYN's office after my first appointment when I was out. And I forget how the conversation came up, but she had said something about, oh, I think I had postpartum depression too. I did nothing about it. I really struggled. And she told me a story, something about her husband saw how much she was struggling one day and she was about to crack. And he just grabbed the baby off of her and said, go to sleep, go take a nap. You know, he could see how much she had changed. And she was like, oh, good for you for getting the help kind of thing. And she made a comment about so many people have it and nobody talks about it that you would never know that they struggle with it. And that stuck with me because there's so many people, whether it's medical providers of mine, friends of mine, family of mine, strangers on the internet, that have reached out to me and said, I went through it too, I didn't get help. I had postpartum psychosis, I never got help. I mean, these intense things these people are going through and they don't open their mouths. I think mothers are just expected to do it. There's no grace that anybody gives us. You know, you're a woman, you're supposed to have a child. This is what happens. This is how it works. And you're not allowed to struggle. It's kind of what society makes me feel like, at least. But then you realize everybody else goes through it too. And if everybody else is going through the same damn thing, then there's obviously a problem.
Yeah, and it's not even, I don't know that, maybe not necessarily asking for help. You were asking for help multiple times, multiple people you were asking for help. And it still was like, you weren't taken seriously.
Exactly. And it wasn't like I was calling them saying I was suicidal or my mental health was struggling. It was just the lack of sleep. Hey, I'm really struggling with lack of sleep. Like, it's really severely affecting my physical health. I didn't even say anything about mental health. But I guess in my mind, I'm like, if you're a medical provider and I'm telling you how bad I'm struggling, you're a medical provider. You're clearly aware what the consequences are of this situation. Why don't you catch it? Why don't you say anything? I mean, several phone calls back and forth within a half hour just for them to tell me to take Benadryl. Yes, no, because, like, I didn't think of that already. And I remember telling them, like, it was just the attitude that they give, too, is ridiculous to me, that just, they blow it off so easily. And I remember, I don't know if it was the OB's office or primary, one of them said, oh, did you try melatonin, too? And I said, I've taken Benadryl, I've taken melatonin, I had tried Unisom, and they're like, at the same time? Like, they were so appalled. I said, yes, at the same time. I'm telling you, I'm in, like, a manic state. I can't sleep. What the heck am I supposed to do? Oh, well, I don't know. I mean, if you go to the hospital, they're not going to do anything. Because I wanted to go to the ER. I said, take me to the ER, knock me out. At that point, give me the hard medication and knock me out, because this is impossible. But it is. It's swept under the rug. And nobody notices the signs, and nobody even considers that there may be another problem.
Or even when you went to the ER with, like, super high blood pressure and the doctor was like, well, it's probably just anxiety. Well, even if it is anxiety, like, clearly there's a physical response to that anxiety. There should be, hey, let me refer you to a psychiatrist. Hey, we have a psychiatrist. They should have a psychiatrist in-house. Hey, why don't you talk to our... Yeah, that's terrible that you were just, like, blown off like that.
And it was funny because it was the same night, too. I don't remember time-wise. I remember I went in some point throughout the night. Maybe it was like 9 o'clock. There for a couple hours. They got my blood pressure stabilized, sent me home. While I was home, it shot right back up. And I mean, it was so severe to the point that I couldn't sleep, because when I laid down, I felt like my head was going to explode and my face got tingly. I thought I was literally stroking out the one time because my face just went numb and I couldn't keep my eyes open. And to me, yeah, maybe it's anxiety presenting as other symptoms, but there's symptoms there. So when I went back the same night that I was already there, and there was a different doctor on duty, and that's the one that was like, yeah, it's just anxiety. You know, so to me, it was like, I just came to you several hours ago for high blood pressure. It is now at the exact same, level that it was when I came in initially, when you gave me meds to lower it, and now you're just going to say, it's anxiety, go home. Like, do something. I understand you're over, like, I understand there's a medical crisis with healthcare and everything right now, but, you know, that's a problem. That is a problem. At least examine, at least have a conversation. If it is anxiety, at least discuss it, because I feel like if they discussed it, they might have caught it instead of just dismissing it. So that is, yeah, that's a big thing that makes me very angry and that I'm passionate about is you really got to advocate for yourself, because I didn't. And I just broke down and cried and left and went home and struggled for another week until I got admitted. So, yeah.
It's hard. It's very hard to advocate for yourself, especially,
Yeah.
like you're a new mom, you're tired, you've got a new baby to care for. You should be at the priority of the ER doctors.
Mm-hmm.
And with all the physical health complications that can arise postpartum also, for them to just dismiss you and send you home. Did any of you said you had a really good support system. Did anyone in your family notice, your partner, your family, did they notice any changes in you postpartum? Like, hey, something's kind of off with you. Are you okay? You're doing a lot of this.
I don't remember, such a blur. I don't remember if anybody actually said anything, but I know everybody was like extra sensitive around me, if that makes sense. Like, I know that they could tell something was off, but I don't think anybody realized how extensive it was until I had that day where I cracked and I said, take the firearms out of reach. I don't think I'm going to do anything, but the intrusive thought of me just touching it was enough to scare the crap out of everybody. I think that's when they realized how bad it really was. But yeah, I think they definitely acknowledged it and kept an eye on it. And actually, I said before, we live with my boyfriend's mom, and she's a retired ER nurse, and she had said something to me about that's why I came home when I did. She was staying in Florida with her daughter for a while. She said, that's why I came home when I did, because I saw how bad your anxiety was during the pregnancy. And she was concerned that I might get postpartum depression. So thank God she came home, because I don't know if I would have even caught the extent of it if there wasn't like a medical professional in the house to, solidify my concern with it. Yeah.
And how many weeks postpartum were you when you went into the hospital?
I don't know the exact. I know now he was born April 3rd, and I remember spending, I think, the last week of April into the first week of May in the hospital. So I don't even think it was a full month before it hit me. Yeah.
Mm-hmm. What was that like for you to be away? I know you had said you didn't really feel that immediate attachment. What was that like for you to have to leave your baby with somebody else while you were in the hospital and then to stay with your mother afterwards?
It was rough, because I think as a mom in general, like, I've always been a very maternal person, and I thought something was wrong with me that I wasn't when he was born. I think there was a lot of guilt. It was strange, because I remember my mom asking me, like, don't you miss him? Don't you want to go home? Because I was scared to go home. I kept avoiding it. No, maybe I just need another week here or a couple days here. And, she asked me that question, and I was like, I mean, I don't necessarily miss him, because I don't feel connected to him, because the whole, like, everything was such a mess that the instant connection wasn't there like I thought it would be. And I didn't spend any time with him really much. So it didn't affect me like I thought it would, but I did feel guilty. I felt very guilty that I was not there to raise him. And everybody talks about these little moments that you're going to miss, and they grow so fast, because they do. And, I wasn't there for them, and I felt horrible, but I kept telling myself, I know how important mental health is. I've lost so many friends to mental health issues that I just told myself, he's not going to remember this. He's not going to remember me being gone. Yes, it's the newborn stage, but how many milestones am I going to miss right now? Other than, he's not sleeping and he's crying. So I think that kind of pushed me to make sure I was strong enough to continue to get the help, come home, get situated. It had to be done. It was hard. It was really hard, but it had to be done. So many people don't have the support system that I have, or the ability to take that break, that length of time to readjust, to come back home. I don't know how they do it. I really think that was important for me to do. as much as it sucked. But yeah, I think there's a lot of guilt that came with it at the time.
Good for you for putting yourself. I mean, you can't take care of your son if you can't take care of yourself. So yeah, that's really important. What was it like when you did come home?
It was weird. It was a weird adjustment because, I mean, he still had struggles sleeping. And how do I want to put that? I had so much fear surrounding coming home over sleep. As weird as that sounds, like that's the only way I know how to put it, because I was terrified if I didn't sleep that I would end up in the same position, or that I couldn't sleep because I was so like hyper aware of everything, especially with him in the crib, not next to me. I mean, and I know a lot of people do it. You check if he's breathing, you stare at him, you look at him, you hear from him, and oh my goodness, I think it was just magnified for me a million times. So that was my fear when I came home, and I did struggle for a while. I had to get medication to be able to sleep at night at home too. But that was probably the hardest adjustment. During the day, I grew closer with him. I bonded with him. It didn't bother me much. But the sleepless nights, you get 3 hours of sleep, 2 hours of sleep. Adjusting back to a normal life with a normal routine with a new baby seemed impossible. And for many months after I came home, it was a lot of, I was up with him all night, I handed him over to his grandma during the day, and I slept. Not a lot of people have that. Yeah, I don't think I would have gotten through it if I didn't have the people I have to do that with. But yeah, I mean, it's a rough transition because you go through something that is so traumatic, and whether it's the labor and delivery or the postpartum hospital stay, it's a lot going on mentally. It's a lot going on physically on my body. I was so drained. I mean, you're still recovering from having a kid. Yeah, it was a rough transition. It took a very long time. I had to take more time off work for short-term disability because I can't go back to work on an hour of sleep when I'm, ready to pass out or throw up because I'm so tired. And then I lost my job because of that too. So, I mean, and then it was more of anxiety and depression after that, because then I am a stay-at-home mom now and I didn't have a choice in it. So now I got to figure out what my next steps are. So the whole readjustment process, I mean, that took months too. I don't think you can jump right back into it and expect it to be normal. Yeah, a lot of time.
Now, I want to ask you about how long it took you to feel like things were kind of back to normal, but I don't know that things ever really feel back to normal. About how long until you were like, okay, I got this. I feel like I know what I'm doing. I feel okay. I can cope.
I'm trying to think. I mean,
are you there yet? I guess. I mean, like 10 months postpartum is still like a short amount of time.
Yeah, I mean, I think I'm there. I still, how do I want to word this? I think as far as the depression and the lack of sleep and the insomnia and like super anxiety, I think I'm okay. I think I'm good. I don't, every once in a while I have some depression. I mean, I think that's expected when you have postpartum depression or depression in general. But yeah, I mean, I could honestly say almost all the time that I'm pretty good. The only thing that I had struggled with the last couple months was, you kind of got to find yourself again after the chaos. But I mean, I'm trying to think of my birthday is in October, and I remember being around the time of my birthday and I was still kind of in a fog. It takes many months of med readjustment and therapy and med, switching or upping dosages again. And there's back and forth for a while, and you have to get into the new normal. So, I mean, I want to say maybe October, probably the end of October, somewhere around there, that I remember things started to lift. Like you could feel the weight off your shoulders. And yeah, I mean, now I think we're pretty good. I mean, I'm going to school full time. I'm looking at part-time jobs, trying to promote the business, do some online readings here and there. We're getting pigs and chickens. I mean, there's a lot of stuff that's changing around here that I don't think I'd be able to do if I didn't feel better. Mm-hmm. So yeah.
Do you don't have to answer this if you don't want to. Do you think about having more kids, or that's kind of like way far off in the future?
God, that's such people ask me that. my grandma busts my butt about it. You know, she said something the other day. Well, not the other day. It was a while ago. Like right after I had him and got home from the hospital, she's like, "All right, now it's time to make her girl." I said, "Excuse me, no, boy girl."
I don't mean like that, but just because of like the experience that you've had, like that is a big consideration for having future children.
Yeah, honestly, it's complicated because I really would love to one day have another one. I'm petrified that I'm going to go through this again. I mean, I think I so severely lost myself that I'm scared to do it again. Like in my mind, it's like, what if I do it and I have more health issues, like physical issues or more mental issues, and I don't know. We thought about it, but
you don't need to know now. But it's
rough.
Yeah,
yeah,
it's something to consider.
It's rough, and I'm sure a lot of people think about it too. You know, like, do you want to put yourself through this again? Yeah, you want more kids. Yeah, you want your kid to have a sibling, but like, do you want to go through this again? Is it worth putting yourself and your family through this again just to have another one? I don't know, but that is something that many people ask me, and that I know a lot of people, recently who have had kids that are kind of the same thing. I don't, you don't know if you want to go through it again. So yeah, complicated question, complicated answer.
Well, it is. Yeah,
it is. Yeah.
Okay, I just figured I would throw it out there and kind of see, yeah. Okay. Allison, can you tell me a little bit about the work that you do?
Yes. So I love talking about this too. So basically what happened is growing up, I had spiritual experiences that scared the crap out of me. So did my baby brother. And at one point we said, let's go to psychic development classes and find other people like us so it's less scary. Did that. Turns out my brother shut everything off. My mom's extremely open, and I'm the only one that actually did anything with it. So there was a period of time where I was, just growing my abilities, and I wasn't sure if this was something I was going to pursue. I had lost a lot of family members, including both of my grandfathers, within like 6 months of each other, maybe. And that kind of lit everything up. Everything got stronger, and I was like, yep, we're going to do this. We're going to help other people. So for a while, I would dabble in it here and there, but I was offering mediumship readings. And since I struggled with this postpartum depression, I kind of flipped everything around, and now I'm doing intuitive guidance readings and mediumship readings. And some of my content now, I'm trying to focus on mental health and, some other aspects of my life in general, because I've learned that things need to be talked about. So I'm really excited. It seems like I've been getting a lot of people, contacting me from the mental health stuff, from the postpartum stuff. Like I've been there, like, thanks for sharing kind of stuff. But yeah, I offer readings online. Everything is through Facebook Messenger. I just type back and forth because honestly, with a kid, it's very hard to do, videos with the child screaming in the background. So yeah, it's exciting. I love doing it. I think makes my soul happy, and I really like helping other people and helping them heal. And so far, it's been interesting. I've been able to connect with a lot of people, and yeah, I love it.
That's awesome. Can you tell the listeners where they can find you?
Yes. So on Facebook, it's Souls of a Feather, and then on Instagram and I almost said Twitter, Instagram and TikTok, it's Souls of a Feather, all lowercase, separated by periods.
Awesome. I did want to ask you before, do you have any advice for women who are suffering from prenatal mood disorders or postpartum mood disorders?
Yes. I mean, definitely don't be afraid to get help. And I'm sure other people have said that, but there's so much shame that people feel around having these issues that they don't seek the help or they feel alone. And I guess I'm at the point that, like, screw it. Screw them. Who gives a shit? I mean, would you rather struggle in silence and feel like you're losing it? Or would you rather suck it up, get the help you need? It's not easy. I mean, it's a rough process to get the help and talk about it and start the medications. I mean, they mess with your head for a little bit too. It's rough, but I think that's my biggest thing is get the help. Both things are tough. You got to choose your tough. You either try to tough it out on your own and struggle more, or you tough it out and you work with people that could help. Yeah, I mean, that's probably my biggest thing. And I mean, not so much advice, but more of just something to remember is like there's no normal, and everybody struggles in different ways, and it's okay to struggle. Like, you're not perfect. You're a mom or a new mom. You're a person. You're human. You're not perfect, and it's okay not to be the poster mom you think you should be, I guess I want to say.
Yeah, that's awesome. I love that.
Yeah.
Everybody does struggle. Yeah. Well, Allison, thank you so much for taking time out of your schedule to share your story. I really appreciate it. I know other people appreciate it too. It's so important to talk about these things, and I really appreciate you sharing your struggle with prenatal and postpartum depression. So thank you so much.
Thank you for having me. I'm glad you're doing this. Glad for the opportunity.
If you're looking for resources for prenatal and postpartum mood disorders, a great place to start is Postpartum Support International at postpartum.net. You can also text the word HELP to their helpline at 1-800-944-4773 for information, resources, and support groups. If you know someone who could benefit from listening to this episode, please send it their way. And as always, thank you for listening.